I want to talk about faith just for a moment because it's a very important topic actually. And since you brought it up, Hinduism doesn't put a lot of emphasis on faith. You'll notice it's the word is Shraddha. You'll hear it every so often, but unlike the Western religions, it's not something that's really stressed in Hinduism. The reason why is because Hinduism is not based on blind faith. Hinduism is not based on the idea that, well, this is what we believe, we have no proof of it, but we're still going to believe in it anyway. You don't find that in Hinduism a lot. Rather, there is faith, but it's faith that is based upon experience. So to give an example, when I get onto an airplane, how do I know that I'm going to reach my destination? It's a type of faith, but it's faith based on the fact that I've gotten on the plane so many times before. It's worked in the past, so therefore, even though I can't guarantee that I'll get to my destination this time, I have faith that it will happen because I've had that experience. In the same way, when we're studying scriptures, more importantly, when we are practicing Sanatana Dharma, when you practice, what is wonderful about this religion, about this spirituality, is that when you do that practice, you have a result. You have a result. And I'm sure many people in the audience have done this. You've done puja in such a way that you can feel God's presence there. I'm sure people in your audience have done yoga asanas, and you feel the result in your body. You feel more energetic, you feel limber, you feel peaceful, you feel wonderful. I'm sure people have tried meditation, and you feel the stress just melt away. So it's not merely a matter of blind faith. It is quite literally science. What Sanatana Dharma tells us is that if you follow these certain spiritual practices, if you practice, you will have a result. Period. You will have a result. And it's quite literally scientific in that it's replicable. In other words, if you meditate in such a way, A, B, and C will happen. If you don't believe it, you don't need to believe it, do it. And you'll see. You'll see the result. So our religion is not so much based on faith in the Western sense of just believing in something despite the fact that we don't have proof for it. On the contrary, the proof is our own experience. In Sanatana Dharma, the whole point is not just to think theoretically about God, not to just have God seen as this divine being who's so far away from us, who we can't see, so therefore we have to convince ourselves that he's there. This is what brought me to Sanatana Dharma, is that no, with this path, you can quite literally experience the presence of God within you, and it can come to the point where you experience this 24 hours a day. And, if I'm married to my wife, and my wife is sitting here next to me, I don't have to have faith that she's there. She's here. I can see her, I can touch her. She's here. She can speak to me. Our relationship with God can become so rich, so full, so vivid through Sanatana Dharma that it's almost quite literally as if God is present within us and we can hear him. Not a literal voice, but we can hear him nonetheless. We can experience him. We feel his love. And it's not a matter of faith. We know that he's real.
It's so beautiful to hear what you just mentioned, and continuing with the last lines on the softer side where you say that you can hear him. Mm-hmm. So when you hear God, what is it that do you feel he's telling you?
For myself personally, I hear that God wants me to do anything I can to revive and save Dharma. What is unfortunate is that despite the fact that Sanatana Dharma is such a rich and beautiful tradition, so ancient, going back thousands of years, and the fact that it's been so attractive to people that for thousands of years, people have come to India, searching for this. I mean, Columbus, we have to keep in mind, was not searching for Puerto Rico. He was not searching for the New World. He was searching for India. The whole world at one point was attracted to India and because of its spirituality. But what we see today is that unfortunately Sanatana Dharma is facing so many challenges, very real challenges. We live in a world that finds it more and more difficult to appreciate the sophistication and the beauty of this culture. We live in a more violent world, in a more materialistic world. And as a result, there are many, many challenges, both external challenges to Sanatana Dharma, but also challenges from within as well. I'm one of these people who doesn't take a blind approach to my religion. When it comes to Hinduism, I'm Hinduism's biggest critic, in addition to someone who loves it the most. You know, so we have many, many challenges, and what God seems to be telling me again and again and again is that I personally must devote every ounce of my being to helping Sanatana Dharma to overcome these challenges.
My guest today, as you have seen, is Dharma Pravartaka Acharya Dr. Frank Morels, and the aim that he has chosen for his life is restoring Sanatana Dharma as a global force. Now, you refer to the challenges, so let us understand what are the main challenges that you see are there for Sanatana Dharma, present context.
Sure. Well, first of all, when we think of Hinduism today, one thing that's very important to always keep in our mind is that we're talking about a religion which presently, in the year 2007, has gone through essentially 1,200 years of battering. You know, when we look at the other religions, they tend to be much stronger, but it's because they haven't had the same challenges that Hinduism has. For the last 1,200 years, foreign invaders literally invaded India, tried to physically annihilate Hinduism, quite literally. When I say physically annihilate, I mean most of the Hindu temples in North India were demolished. Many, many Hindus were killed. A lot of people don't know this. A good friend of mine is Dr. Konrad Elst, and he's a scholar. Like myself, he has a PhD in essentially Hindu studies, and he's written about a dozen books on Hinduism. He estimates that anywhere from 50 to 100 million Hindus were killed in a 1,000-year period. I mean, that's amazing. The Holocaust that happened with Jews was a truly terrible thing. That was 6 million people. Can we imagine 50 to 100 million people being killed over a period of 1,000 years? This is actually something that happened. Then after the attempted physical annihilation of Hinduism, then the British came. And they were certainly seemingly better. You know, they weren't trying to physically kill Hindus, but at the same time, they tried to create more of an intellectual, cultural, spiritual annihilation of Hindu culture. You know, so as we see India today and how Hinduism is practiced there, we see that there are many challenges. We see that India itself has been a radically secular state. And what I mean by radically secular is that the government has not really been neutral, but has almost in times been actually anti-Hindu to the benefit of other religions. So, you know, we certainly see that over the period of the last 1,200 years, Hinduism has been battered again and again and again. As we look at Hinduism today, what we see is a religion that is quite literally rising from the ashes. And it's doing so wonderfully. I have to say this, having said all of these more negative things about the history of Hinduism, when I look at Hinduism today and stretching into the future, I see a resurgent Hinduism. You know, when I think of Vedic culture, I don't think of 5,000 years ago. I think of the future. I see Sanatana Dharma as becoming quite literally a global force. A force which will pertain in the future not just to India, not just to Indians, but quite literally to the world. I see Dharma, properly understood and properly communicated, as becoming something that will quite literally sweep the world and change not just how people throughout the world view religion and spirituality, certainly that, but more, even how they view politics, how they view economics, how they view social structures and social interrelationships, how they view science, how they view quite literally everything. Because Sanatana Dharma comments on everything. It is a way of life and not merely a sect or a religion.